Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to my AngularDart and Firebase tutorials. I started this series but because of some reason I had to stop it, but I am back again, and today we are going to talk about creating our first AngularDart full-fledged app, which will be again a Pokemon app. But the key feature of this app would be the understanding how actually AngularDart works and how it can be helpful if you are a Flutter developer already. So that's the concept, and how easy it is to deploy it to Firebase. Okay, so if you haven't watched my earlier video, which was just a single video on AngularDart, that how you can create your first AngularDart app, then in that particular video I have shown you how you can install AngularDart and all that stuff. But still I will start from the scratch because of the changes which happened in last 2 or 3 months. So if you'll go to this particular website, which is webdev.dartlang.org, there you will see how to get started. Then it will show you, if you have a Mac, then how you can use brew to install Dart, and if you already have Flutter installed, then you can use the Dart SDK from there as well. Then if you want to use WebStorm, then you can use it. Otherwise you can use VS Code or anything. So I would be using VS Code this time. Last time I used WebStorm. So you need to do these two things, that you need to activate the WebDev as well as the stagehand. So WebDev will help us to the server part of the app, like how to start that particular server and all that stuff, and stagehand will give us the project structure which we want to create. It can be the you can say console application or Angular application or whatever, but there are like so many kind of application which you can make. So you can click on these links which will open that particular, like you can see stagehand or Dart project generator. So these are the commands which you can use to generate different kind of projects, and then we'll see how we can create the AngularDart app. And let's start. So before starting, let me just show you what we are going to create. That might seem fancy to you or might not, but let's see. So if I'll go to this first tab, then you can see this is a Pokemon app, and when you will click any of the Pokemon here from here, then the corresponding Pokemon will appear on the right hand side with some information. So that's a kind of a card. So I have used AngularDart for this particular application. As you can see in the URL, it is being deployed to the Firebase as well, and I have used Bootstrap as well in this application. So let me just tell you one thing, I am not a very good web developer. In fact, I don't have enough web experience, but I just try to play with some things here and there. So you can get the idea. I mean, it's like I am also learning, so please pardon me if I say something wrong, but I'll try to explain each and everything to you. So this is what we are going to create, although and it works pretty fine with the mobile as well. I have designed it in that way. So if I'll just you can see decrease its size, so it's kind of good responsive, not the best, but kind of it is workable. So this is what we have, and now I'll create the project. So I have already taken few minutes of you, but just to be on the same stage, let's start. So I am in a folder which is web folder, and I'm gonna create here one AngularDart application. So first of all, I'll create a directory. I'll name it as Pokemon app. Okay, and inside this I'll go to this particular directory now, Pokemon app. Now I'm here. If I'll write ls, then you can see I have nothing here. Now I'm gonna use this stagehand. I have already activated it, and now I can say web Angular, which will give me the AngularDart kind of project structure for me. And otherwise I can also use web simple, and then I can use Angular in the dependency or Angular components in the dependency. It totally depends on you how you want to use it. So if you are starting from the scratch, then maybe you can use web simple, but there is not that much difference, just a difference of 1 or 2 libraries. So I'm gonna start with the web Angular, so that we would be using this only, so that it can give us few things by itself. So I'll just press enter, and see, it just created something for me. Now I have to run pubget. so that it can install or download those dependencies. So it will take few seconds. So by the time it is taking few seconds, let me just tell you that AngularDart is very different than AngularJS or Angular 2 or Angular 7, whatever you want to call it. So the only difference which you will probably notice is that Angular 7 or Angular 6 or whatever it is uses TypeScript, and here in AngularDart we use Dart. Okay, so and one more thing is that this is not the fastest framework available, this AngularDart. Neither it is the slowest or slowest framework. It's not even slowest. It's very like it is good for me, like the people like me who already know Dart, and they don't want to go for JavaScript and TypeScript and all that. Also, it is not the, you can say, the size is not very small that you will say okay, this is the smallest framework available. That's also not the case. So these are some things which may or may not be important to you, so choose accordingly what you want to do. And I guess I personally feel that AngularDart is kind of good for I guess in terms of business logic, but when it comes to UI, then I guess I kind of stuck somewhere. I have to learn CSS and all that stuff, and then Bootstrap, and maybe I don't like Angular components that much. Like if I'm using Vue, then I can use Vuetify, and if I'm using React, then also there are a lot of libraries available. So that's not the case with AngularDart. I mean, there is I don't know how many things you can do. You can do them, but you cannot just directly use Vuetify here without doing some stuff. Okay, so we are ready with the project, and let's see how good the experience would be. So now I'll type ls, and I can see I have these many files with a folder web, and now I'll write code dot so that it can open this particular project in Visual Studio Code. And now I am into Visual Studio Code, and now you can see we have pubspec.yaml. So if you are already familiar with Flutter, then I guess you know what it is. So here we have two dependencies which won't be available if you would have used the particular stagehand web simple. Okay, so these are two additional things which you get. Apart from that, you get few things in the dependencies. So this is what we get. It is kind of looks similar to what we get in a Flutter app. And then we have this web folder which is additional, you can say, which is related to AngularDart probably. Then we have the same lib folder. There also we have few things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this source folder from here. So let's delete it. So now I have deleted this source folder from the lib folder. Now it will definitely give me some error. In the web part, you can see main.dart. So as you can see, it also has this run app method, which is very similar to Flutter application. And inside that, rather than having material app, we say app component ng factory. Okay, it is what we get with the template which is generated by AngularDart itself, which is the part of this app component.template.dart, which you cannot see obviously, but you have in the lib folder these three files. One is for Dart, app component.dart, for one for HTML and one for CSS. Okay, so let's clean all of this mess. Okay, in the CSS, let's delete all of this, and in the HTML also, let's delete all of this. Now we come to Dart, and let's delete all of this. Okay, so now we don't have anything. Now we'll go to styles.css. we have few things here. Let's leave it like this as well. And I mean, it's totally your choice if you don't want to use it like this, but let's leave it like this. And then we have main.dart, which I already shown you. Then we have index.html. okay, it's very common HTML file which you would see anywhere, and it has this script def for source main.dart.js, which is the JS file which will be generated after the compilation of your AngularDart app. Okay, so because Dart directly does not run on any of the browser, it has to compile to JavaScript first, and then only it can run in any browser. So that's the concept. Now we have this my app which is saying loading. So this my app is, you can say, an AngularDart component, okay, which we right now does not have because we deleted everything. Now we will go to app component.dart. First thing we have to do is we will import Angular. So like how we import material, the first thing, similarly now we will make a class, we will call it app component. So this is our, you can say probably the application class or the global app class. Okay, this is our class app component. Now in AngularDart we use a lot of metadata and attributes, so we use this @ symbol to define the component. Okay, so this is, we can say that we use a lot of annotation as well. So here this is the annotation that we want to use a component. Now we have to give a selector. So selector would be the name of our component which we will define in the HTML file. Okay, so we can say my app, because if you'll go back to index.html, then you can see we have this my app. Okay, if I'll change the name from here, then I have to change the name from there as well. Okay, so we have this. And now what we need to do, we can define a template here. Okay, so anything if you want to write, then you can write here. Let's say I want to write in h1 tag, let's say my name is AngularDart. Okay, and after that you can maybe close this h1 tag, and this is fine. Okay, so this is how it works. And now this is what we have right now. Okay, we will go to terminal and we can write web dev serve to start this particular application in the browser. So as soon as I will write this, it will create the build script and all that stuff, and you don't have to worry about it. And the good thing about AngularDart's latest version is that it gives you the errors on compile time only, so I don't have to worry about them by debugging in the Chrome console and all that. So that's kind of good sometimes. So this is what it is doing right now. It is trying to compile it to JavaScript and do all that stuff which it do in the background. So we have the, so first time it takes some time. After that you can, like, whenever you do a change, you don't have to wait for these particular time period. So let's see how much time it will take. So now, yeah, it's ready. So you can see that it is serving the web on this particular URL and test on this particular. So we are not bothered about testing right now. So we'll click on this, and as soon as I will open this, you can see my name is AngularDart. And firstly it showed you that loading thing which you can see here in the index.html. Okay, so this is what we have now. In Angular as well, everything is composed of components. So this component is kind of, you can say, a widget in Flutter. So the Flutter widget is component here in AngularDart, and we can specify a template here. Let's say if it's a multi-line template, then we can use this 3 commas here, and then we can go to the next line and we can say h2 Pokemon app. And this is not something which I guess you would like a lot, because now if I'll go back to browser, if I'll refresh it, then you can see Pokemon app. Okay, this is how you can give a template. Then also you can give styles. Okay, so it's totally your wish if you want to give any style here, but there is a better way. You can specify this template in a template URL. So you can just say template URL. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this piece of code and I'll delete this template from here, and I can just use template URL and I can specify the URL. So it's app component.html. so you can see this file here on the left hand side, and we will paste that particular code here. Now if I'll refresh this, then also I'll see the same thing, because this is how you will make it better in terms of code cleaning and all that. So it's a good practice. Now if you want to specify any style, then you can maybe include style which takes a list of string. So obviously you need to specify the style URLs, and here because it takes a list of strings, so I have used this square brackets, and here I can say app component.css. Okay, now if I'll go to the CSS and let's say I want to give the h1 a color, let's say red. Okay, so now if I will refresh it, then you can see my name is AngularDart in red, and because we are making a Pokemon app and right till now we have nothing, but it's okay. So what we are going to do for Pokemon app, we will make a different component itself. Okay, so in the lib folder, what I'll do, I'll make a folder which I will call Pokemon. Okay, so it's again your wish. It doesn't need to be like this only. You can name it whatever you want. You can in fact make directly those files. It's totally your choice. You don't want to use the folder, then also it's your choice, but it depends person to person how they want to write their code. But it's good to use maybe these what you call it, these folders. Okay, so one more thing which I want to say, that rather than using this folder, I'm gonna delete it. Why? Because it's better to go with the normal approach which the framework tells you. So let's create one more folder, source, and here we can define more things, like we can have multiple components, right? So we can make another folder inside it, we can call it components. Okay, and inside that we can make another folder, let's say Pokemon component. Okay, so that it's easy to for anyone to look into your code. And then in apart from components, what we can do in the source folder, we can create another folder which we can models to define our data classes. And then in this source we can have services where we will write the business logic. Okay, so this is what we can have for the time being. Now in the components and the Pokemon component, I'll make 3 files. Okay, one will be for HTML, one will be for CSS, and one will be for Dart like I made earlier. So I'm going to call it Pokemon component dot Dart. Okay, it's fine. Now I'll make another file, I'll call it Pokemon component.html. okay, and the third file will be Pokemon component.css. now I need to specify that I am going to use this component, correct? So I'll go to my app component.dart. here in the HTML part I am saying these things, but rather than this I'll say that I am going to use here something called the Pokemon app. Okay, or my Pokemon, or whatever you want to call it. So I'll just say here that I want to use my Pokemon. Okay, so what it means is that I don't want to do anything in my main application class. I just want it to give all the things to different components. Like every component has you can say that they have some responsibility to do something, right? So I have made this Pokemon component. The purpose of this Pokemon component is to do to show us what we have on this screen. Okay, this will be done by Pokemon component, and our application will do anything related to the whole application. Okay, so right now we don't have to do anything with the whole application, so I'm just leaving it blank. But because we have declared there that I'm gonna use my Pokemon, so I have to give it a hint that I'm gonna use something, another component. So here what I can call it, I can call that you can use some directives. Okay, it will take a list of object, and I can say here that I want to use Pokemon component. Okay, now we don't have any Pokemon component, so we'll go to Pokemon component.dart. here also we will do the same thing. We will import Angular, and then we can make a class called Pokemon component. Okay, and here also we can use this @component to define our widget or component, whatever you want to call it. And in the selector part, what we will write? We will write my Pokemon, because this is what I have used in this app component.html, correct? So I'll go back here, my Pokemon, and for the template URL I can use Pokemon component dot html, and for the style URL I can say Pokemon component, oh sorry, it takes a list of strings, so Pokemon component dot css. Okay, so we are done with this as well. Now I'll go back to app component.dart. I need to import this, so I'll just import it, and now we are again good to go. Now I'll go back to my Pokemon component.html. Now I'll paste this code from there to here, and let's see if that works. So I'll go here, let's refresh it, and you can see we still have this, but now you can see that my name is AngularDart's color has been changed to black because we added this to this particular CSS. Let's delete it from here and go back to our Pokemon component.css, paste it here, and now if I refresh it, you can see the same thing. So this is how you use different components, and this is how you declare them somewhere. And now what I'll do, I'll go to this model class and I'll create a Pokemon.dart file here. Here I'll define my model. Okay, so if you are already familiar with Flutter, then the same model which you must have used in your Flutter app, you can use it here. How? Then let me just show you. I'll go to my GitHub account, and it will take some time because I have a very slow internet connection these days. I'll go to repositories, and you can see the first link is the AngularDart one, and around the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, oh, there is the Pokemon app. I'll click on it, and then I'll go to lib folder, then I'll go to this Pokemon.dart, as you can see, and I'm gonna copy and paste all of this code to that particular file, and this is it. So as you can see, we have a class PokeHub which gives us a list of Pokemons, and we are going to fetch this from a URL which I'm just I'll just show you. And here we have this map to JSON and all that. Then we have a class Pokemon, and it will show us some warnings like this number. It should be a warning. Why? Because this num is also a data type, so we should avoid these kind of things, but let's leave it like this for this particular implementation. So as you can see, we have copied this to this Pokemon hub and this Pokemon.dart. Now in the services part, what I'm going to do, I'm gonna say Pokemon service one second .dart, and it will create one more class for me, and here I can say Pokemon service. Okay, now because we want to fetch data from some URL and we want to make some GET request, so we need to add a dependency. So I'll go back to pubspec.yaml and I'll add few dependencies here. Like I will add HTTP first of all. Why? Because I want to make some HTTP request, and then what I'm going to add doesn't mean right now. Okay, so let's leave it. So it is fine for the time being. Otherwise I was thinking about adding Firebase and all that, but let's leave it like this right now. So it will take some time, I guess, and let me just see how it is still connected to my phone. Okay, so it's done. So now we are here with the Pokemon service. Now what I'll do, I'll import this HTTP .dart as HTTP. Okay, and here I can make a Pokemon hub, which we can call Pokemon hub for sure, and then this is done. So after what we are doing, we are importing that particular model class which we just made, and now what we need to do, we will let's import it first. Oh, what's the error? So it's okay, so it's Poke Hub. And second, guys, so it's Poke Hub. Let's import it, and it's done. And let's rename it as well to Poke Hub. Poke Hub, is it fine? yeah, it's good. So poke hub, we have this Pokemon service, and then what we will do, I'll make a method here, let's say future, and it will give us poke hub, and I can name it, let's say fetch Pokemon data. Okay, and this will be a synchronous method. I am not going to explain this because I guess you already know what it is all about. Okay, and then I will say that http await http dot get, and we will paste the URL. We don't have the URL so far, so here I'll go and say where URL. So if you want to use the URL, you can also use this same from my Flutter app. So I'll go here to main.dart, and here we will see probably the URL. So this is the URL. I'm just gonna copy and paste it. So okay, this is fine. And then also we can, in fact we can copy all of this code. So I'll copy this as well. So after this, okay, this is fine. Now this JSON decode will not work without importing the Dart convert, so I'll import that as well. Now we are done with this fetch Pokemon data, and yeah, it's fine. So now we have kind of did this. Now now we just have to return this Poke Hub, and where we want to fetch this data, I mean where you want to throw this data. So this particular method should be called from somewhere, correct? So for that, what we need to do, so we will go back to our Pokemon component.dart. So where it is, so Pokemon component.dart, and here we need to specify few things. What would be that? First of all, for using any services, like we have a Pokemon service. So if we are talking about this AngularDart structure, then we have here something called a providers, okay, where we can specify our class provider, and we can just say Pokemon service. Okay, by the time I'll explain each and everything to you, but right now you just have to understand this, that there is something called providers, and you need to specify any class provider like Pokemon service. So whenever you have a service, you have to declare them like this. Okay, so this is again fine. Now this is our class Pokemon component, and here we can say Poke Hub, because this is what we want, correct? And then we can also say, let me just import it, and then we can say Pokemon service, and we can call it Pokemon service. Okay, and then let's say what we want to do, we want to perform dependency injection here, because whenever you have to use a service, you need to inject it into the constructor. So I'll explain what is dependency injection and all that stuff, but for the time being you can just use it like how I'm using it, okay, because it's itself a topic which is very easy to understand once you get familiar with it. But right now what I'm going to do, I'll make a Pokemon component constructor, and I'll inject it like this. Why I'm injecting it? Because if let's say this Pokemon service, you might be wondering that I could use something like this. Let's say Pokemon service is equal to Pokemon service. I'll make an object of this particular class, and then I can use this Pokemon service dot whatever I want to use. But in that case, whenever this Pokemon service will change its constructor or whatever, then we have to change it everywhere wherever we will use this Pokemon service object. So that's to avoid that, and to get the advantage of AngularDart, we use this dependency injection by injecting into the constructor, and I'll explain it later. For the time being, you just have to understand like this, okay? And then we can also, yeah, this is fine, I guess. And now we need to fetch the data as soon as the app loads, okay? So if you are from a Flutter background, then you know that we make a stateful widget, and there is something called init, okay, void init, where we can initialize something. So similarly in AngularDart, we can implement this classes on init, and it will give us a method. So this is the ng on init, and we can fetch some data in this particular method. So we can say fetch data. Okay, now we need to make this particular method here, fetch data. And okay, one second. So we can fetch some data here. It will be a asynchronous call, and I'll say pokehub is equal to await, and now I can use this Pokemon service dot fetch Pokemon data, and this is fine. So this is how we will use it, and yeah, that's it. So this is how you can inject any service class, and this is how you will fetch data. This is we call lifecycle hooks in AngularDart, that you implement this on init, and it will give you this method to override, which is ng on init. It will be called as soon as your application will be initialized, and then now we are done with the coding part almost. Now let's go back to HTML part of it. So what I'm gonna use here, so I'll go back to Pokemon component.html. I'll delete all of this stuff. Okay, first of all, this is not something which probably you would like to have. I mean, this does not look good, so I'll just leave this Pokemon app, and then let me just show you that, you know, I have this Pokemon hub now. This Pokemon hub have something called, let's go back here, have this list of Pokemon. So if I want to use a list, then you might be familiar with the unordered list or ordered list in HTML. So the same thing I'm gonna use here. So I'll go back to my poke component.html. Here what I'll say that, you know, I want to use UL. Okay, so what is UL here? UL is unordered list. Now in our unordered list I have a list item, obviously, and in this list item I can show something. So after this UL you can use the for loop. Okay, so what is for loop? Okay, so Angular gives you this for loop to loop through some list of objects, and you can like use them with any list item. So how this works, let me just show you. So we can use something called ng4. Okay, so if I write ng4, it will give me this star ng4, and please make sure that you use this star, that let item of this particular collection. So the name of our collection is pokehub dot Pokemon. So if you remember, if I'll go back to my Pokemon class, then we have this pokehub dot Pokemon, and this pokehub we get from here. So this is small p and then capital H and the same thing. So let me just delete this. So this is what we have. Now let item, in place of item we can say something else. Maybe we can say poke. Okay, so it's totally your choice if you want to call something else, but we are just right now, I mean, we are going to call it poke. So poke. Okay, so this is what it will do, and yeah, this is fine, I guess. And in the list item we can use this double curly braces to define any variable. So we can just say poke dot name. Okay, and that's it. So now I'll run my server again. Why I'm running it again? Because I added a dependency HTTP. Whenever you will add a dependency, you will need to run it again. So it will take few seconds. So what we did, we have this ng4 to make a for loop. So as you can see, we are not repeating the list item because it will repeat for us. And here we can say that, you know, I want to use this list which is pokehub.pokemon and item from this list which is poke. So you can name it anything, and then poke have this property name which we can use, and it should give us the list of Pokemons. Okay, this is what we are doing right now. So when we will be done with this, then let's see what happens. So okay, so if I'll go back here, then let's refresh it, and we don't see anything. So let's inspect it and see what actually happened. So oh, there are a lot of issues, like it's internal server error and the MIME type checking is disabled and all that. So this is not actually working. So when it's not working, let's try to see. So you can see failed after 14.2 seconds. It already shown me this error which we actually missed somehow. So you can see that, you know, it's showing some error to us. It's sometimes very difficult to identify what kind of error it would be, but there are a lot of actually errors. So rather than this ng4, it should not be here, it should be first of all here. So that's, I guess, one of the things. And then if we go back to component.dart, we are using ng4. okay, so now let me just tell you that whenever you use ng4, then you need to include this in your directives. Okay, so it takes a list of directives, so you need to add this as a core directive. Okay, so core directives include ng4, ngif, if you want to have something like if else in your HTML file. So these are part of core directives, or you can maybe directly say ng4 and ngif. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, so now if I'll refresh it, maybe it fix it, or maybe it does not. Okay, so this is done. And now let me just make it very clear that let's go back to Pokemon component.html, and in the UL part we can only display this list if PokeHub is not null. Okay, so we are gonna use ngif and again the start, and we can say that please use load this list when the PokeHub is not equal to null. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, it's now succeeded. And now if I will refresh it, then okay, Pokemon app, and you can see the list. So what I did is that I said, first of all, using this ngf, which is kind of if else, where we can say then, you know, if you need to do this particular part only if the PokeHub is not null. And there in the list item we are using this for loop to have the Pokemon list, and from that list we want to create a list item for every item in that list. So this is what we are doing so far. I know this is a little bit tricky for the first time, but believe me, it's not that much difficult to understand. So this is what we have so far. And now what I want to do, I want to this is kind of very easy so far, so trust me, it's not the difficult part yet. I personally feel the difficult part is when you have to, you know, make the UI stuff in web, especially if you are a beginner. So this is what you have the Pokemon list with the Pokemon app, but if you'll see here, this looks kind of very nice to me. I don't know why, and this looks very ugly to me. So that's it about it. So now let's try to make it even better. Okay, so what I'm going to use here is that when I'll click on it, it should show me the Pokemon here. Okay, so for that part, what we are going to do, we will go back to our component.dart. We will make a Pokemon here. So Pokemon. Okay, why I'm doing this, it might be a good question, but I want whenever I'll click on something, I'll get this Pokemon. Okay, so that's why I'm making this Pokemon. Okay, now I'll make a method here, void, okay, on select. Whenever I'll select any Pokemon, I want that Pokemon to be here. So let's say Pokemon, let's name it Pika, and what I'll do, I'll assign this Pika to my Pokemon. Okay, so now how I'll use it with HTML. So I'll go back to my HTML, and here in the unordered list, this is the list item. Okay, so inside this list item we also get this click property. So if you will click on this ng click, then it will give me this click property where I can specify which method I want to call. Okay, so let's say I'm saying that it's on select method, which I just created, and what parameter you want to pass. So as you can see, I have this poke as a parameter, so I'll pass it here. Oh, not the whole of it, just poke, and that's it. So now I have this poke, and now below this I can say that, you know, let's have a div tag, and I can say that if, let's say ng if let's say this Pokemon which we have here, this Pokemon I am talking about, if it is not null, okay, if it is not null, then give me its name. So I can just write something like this, that Pokemon dot name, and when it will come, when I'll click on this. Okay, so now if I'll just refresh it, then you can see if I'll click on Bulbasaur, then I'll get Bulbasaur here in the bottom. Why I'm getting in the bottom? Because still I am struggling with the CSS part and the viewing part. If I'll click on Charmander, then it's here. Okay, so it's fine, but we need to do a lot of improvement. So if we talk about the business logic, then we are done almost. But if we talk about the UI of this app, then it's very incomplete so far. So now we will go to Bootstrap. Okay, so I'll say get Bootstrap, and we will use Bootstrap. So you can use Angular components as well, because it is already been added to your dependencies. You can see Angular components, but I used it and I kind of very disliked it, because it's very difficult to use, first of all, for a beginner, and then also it's not that you know, kind of gives a good feeling, because it does not have that much components. So that's one thing. So you go to Bootstrap and click on get started, and you will get this CSS link, which you can just copy and you can use it for the time being. And for the JS part, you can skip it, because it's useful when you have to do anything related to JS, but we kind of does not need it right now. So I'll go back to my index.html, and here after this link I'm gonna paste it. Okay, so now to identify if this is working, so I'll go back to my Pokemon survey, Pokemon HTML, and I'll wrap it with a div, and let's call it div, and let's wrap it like this, and I'll give a class called container. If I'll see a change, then that means that we are done with the Bootstrap part. And let's give it a good look here, that is it changed? Yes. So as you can see, it has changed drastically because of the Bootstrap, and it looks much better now, right? Because if you see Bulbasaur here, yeah, it looks much better. Now I want to improve it further. So first of all I want to maybe use a list. Okay, so what I'm going to do for that, so I'm not saying that you need to remember everything, so please make sure that you know, don't remember anything. Okay, so what we are going to do, there are two things which I want you to do. First one is that let's say we want to divide these two things, because you know, I want to divide into two parts. First is the list, and the second one is the when I'll click on this list. Okay, so for that you can use there are different types of layouts which you can use in CSS, like flexbox, and maybe you can use something called that what we call it, CSS Grid. So I'm gonna use CSS Grid, and then let's see what happens. So for using the CSS Grid, what I'll call, rather than calling it container, let's call it poke grid. Okay, so what I'll do with this, I'll let you know. So this is the poke grid. Now whenever you use a CSS class like poke grid, then you'll go to CSS and you can make a class here. Let's delete it, this is not, so we can just call it poke grid. Okay, and whenever you want to use CSS Grid, you will give a display property and you can call it a grid. Okay, so this is what I'm doing for the time being, and then this is done. So now what I'll do, here I can specify the width, let's say, so I'll give it a width of 100 VW. So if you don't know about what I'm doing right now, so you might take some CSS classes. So I also have some CSS tutorials if you want to take a look. Now I want to divide it into two columns, so I can say grid template columns, and two columns will be, one will be 40 VW and another will be 40 VW as well. And then I want to give some gap between them, so grid column gap, and I can give it like say 5 VW. And then I want to give a padding of 0. Okay, I don't know what will happen, so let's just refresh it. Okay, so it divided this Pokemon app and this particular grid, which I never wanted. Anyway, let's go back to HTML and let's delete this part. Okay, and let's have two divs here. First one for this particular list, and second one we have for this particular thing. So now if I'll refresh it, it's kind of good. Now if I'll click here, then you can see Bulbasaur. If I'll click here, so we have divided it fine. Now now what I want to do, I want to improve this particular list view, okay, which we have here, which is this list. So we can use again what we can use Bootstrap. So I'll go here in the component section and I'll click on the maybe list from here, list group. Okay, we can choose any kind of list from here. So if you want to use any list, totally go with it, and it's totally your choice if you want to use any of this. So basically what I'll do, because I want to give this kind of effect, let me just show you this kind of effect. So I'm gonna use the Jumbotron. Okay, so what is Jumbotron? Now if I'll go to this Jumbotron section, then you will see something like this, right? So there is something called Fluid Jumbotron. I'm gonna use that. Okay, so let's say we are here and let's give it a class. First of all, let's say it is container class. Inside that I'm going to copy this particular code from here. Okay, so let's copy it from here, let's paste it here, and let's delete this part of the code. So we are here, we have this Jumbotron effect now. I'll remove this part from here to here, and in the unordered list part I'm gonna do few things. So first of all, I'll take a header on the top of it, which I can call, okay, inside that we can take, I guess, one more div, and in that div, so I'm still experimenting with it. So I can, let's say, name it, let's say PokeList1, because I might want to do some changes here. And in this PokeList, I want to also give this Pokemon app title. So I'll come here, I will define an h3 tag. Okay, tab h3. Okay, so here I'll say I want to give it some style. Let's give some inline style. So I can say, let's say text align center, and what else, we can also give it a class b5, I guess, from the bottom, mb5. I guess it works. Like, I don't know if it won't work, but I used it. And then we can say Pokemon app. So let's now refresh it and let's see what we get here. Okay, and it's Pokemon app. It's kind of what we wanted, right? It looks almost the same, but not exactly, but okay, it's fine. So after that, what we can do, so this is what we have now. I'm gonna use a list, obviously. So for that list, let's take a look at the lists. So go back to list group. Here we have this list, so I'm gonna use this one only, or maybe I can use something simpler. Let's go here, let's see if we have something simpler. Okay, we don't have anything simpler, so let's use any of them which you feel like, you know, it's simple for you. So list group item, it's, I guess this is the simpler one which you will get, this one. So I'll give this class as list group. So here I can say list group, and then this as class list group group item. So this is as list group item, and now if I'll refresh it, let's see. Oh, this is better again. Okay, so now is it similar? Yes, kind of. So now we have this. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna name it, let's say that I'm gonna use it something called a p tag here, and I can wrap it with a p tag, and we can use something called class let. Okay, so that it is kind of a leading impact it will give. Why? Because I want, yeah, it's much better. And now I want to use the image as well. So here where I'm saying that Pokemon dot name, I want to use the image as well in front of it, right? So before that I can use something called an image tag where I can specify the source. So source would be poke.img. okay, it's fine, I guess. And then I can give some ID to this image, let's say my poke. And now if I will refresh it, I know it's a lengthy tutorial, but you know, I'm trying to explain in each and everything. So now it's look fine, but you know, it's kind of smaller, it's kind of very big, so that's what we need to improve. So I'll go back to the CSS where I can do something with my poke. So I can say, let's say hashtag my poke because it's an ID, and here I can say that, you know, let's make the width as 7 VW, I guess, or VH, and we can give some margin from the right. Okay, and we can make it 10 pixel probably. Now if I'll refresh it, let's see how it looks. Oh, it's much better, and it's kind of similar to this, except the fact that the text here is much better. Okay, that's a different thing, we can definitely adjust it. Okay, so this is what we have as of now, and let me go back to Pokemon component.html, and oh, we achieved a lot of thing here. So we have this poke list one, and we have this poke name as well. So everything looks fine to me so far. So now what? So now we will focus on our second part, which is this one. So for this, when I'll click on it, it shows something like this. So I don't want that, so I'll go to here and I'll click on card and select one of the cards. So if I'll go on the bottom, we have some simple cards here. This one we are going to use something like this, because if you see here, this is something like this. So I can pick any card from here. So like, let's say this particular card with the footer as well. So I'll copy this and I'll come here and I'll post somewhere here. Okay, and this looks, I mean, this looks disgusting, but it's fine. Okay, so also I'll give this class some name. So let's say poke list2. Okay, and we have this card, we want to have some image here. So the image would be, you know what would be the image, so it will be pokemon.img. this is again fine. We can have this class card image top, and we can give it some background as dark, so bg dark, another class, and another class poke image, because we will modify this image using our own CSS. And then in the card body, card title, we can say something like Pokemon name, so Pokemon dot name, this will be fine. And in the text part we can say this Pokemon, okay, this, let's just delete this. So you can say this Pokemon is Pokemon dot name. Okay, okay, this looks much better. And here we can say Pokemon dot type, what kind of Pokemon it is. And then I also want to give some height and weight, so I'll just copy this, okay, here, and I can say, let's delete it, and Pokemon dot height, and before that I can use another b tag saying height, okay. And similarly I'll copy this again and I'll use weight this time, and I will use Pokemon dot weight. Oh, it looks much better now, I guess. So let's refresh it and we are here. Let's click here. Oh, this is height, weight, everything is good except the fact that it is too big so far. And now I want to change its size, this image's size. So what I'll do, if you will go to CSS part, so as you can see I have given this poke image class, so I'll go to here and here I'll make this poke image. So I'll say poke image, and now I have to specify the maximum height which I want to give to it. Let's say 200 pixels, and then I'll say align content to center and object fit to contain. This is similar to what we use with Flutter with the different names probably, but almost same thing. So if I'll refresh it, oh, this looks much better. If I refresh it, oh, this is almost the same, but still we need to do some stuff here. So this is what we got here, right? And I guess this kind of do a lot of stuff. Now I have two things. If I'll go back to Pokemon component.css, then maybe you can see, let's say HTML, then I have the first one as PokeList1 and the second one as PokeList2. Okay, so the PokeList2, if I'll just go back here and if I'll show you this, then you can see this list is smaller and there is a scrollable view, okay, because I want to show everything in one screen. You don't have to scroll for viewing this, but if you'll go back to our app, you need to scroll like this, okay, and it gives a very different, because if I'll select here, then I don't know what happened and I have to go back on the top to see what are the changes. So we will do this thing, and let's say if I want to change the size of the desktop, then also it does not fits pretty well. It's kind of good, but still it needs some improvement. So what I'll do, I'll go back to my this particular class, I'll go back to CSS, and for, I guess, for the PokeList2, I'll give some margin, PokeList2, which is the detailed version, and here I'll give it's a fixed height of, let's say, 500 pixel, and then I'll give it no, it is for the PokeList1, which is the list, and we can say that overflow as scroll, because I want to give it a scrolling effect. Okay, similarly we will do the same thing for PokeList2, but here we will just give a margin from the, maybe from left and right, I guess. So we can say 30 pixels and 0 pixel from top and bottom. Okay, this should look much better now. And anything else we want to give? I don't think so. So if I'll just refresh it, okay, this is what we wanted, right? Oh, it has this effect. I didn't know that I mistakenly added this effect, but it looks good to me. So this is what we have, and it is kind of very similar. Okay, we can still adjust few things, but you can check out my source code and you can adjust it. So this is what we could make, and I guess this is still like, till now it's a very long tutorial. So in the next video I'll show you how you can deploy this app to Firebase. And if you go to this inspect, and let's check how it will look on a phone. So here, from here you can change, I guess, the device, and you can select, let's say, iPhone X. Oh, it looks something like this, which is not so bad, but it's fine. So in the next video I'll show you how you can deploy this to Firebase, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then press the like button. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel and share the video with others as well, and please comment if you have any feedback or anything. Press the bell icon to get the future updates. Also subscribe to the channel for sure, and the source code is available on GitHub. Thank you so much. Bye bye, take care.